Hello and welcome to Wild Calls, where we take your calls and questions about wildlife and do our best to answer them. I'm your host, Jolie, and today, as you may have guessed, the topic is wolves. Today, we're going to be discussing Canis lupus, the familiar creature who you just heard howling. As a brief overview, Canis lupus, or the wolf, gray wolf, etc., is a wild canid that are loved and hated by humans for all sorts of different reasons, some of which we'll go over. I don't want to spoil too much, so I'll let the questions reveal more of the information. To start, we have a question from Nora.
Hello, Jolie. I am wondering, what is the native range of gray wolves? Where in the world can you find these wolves?
So, gray wolves are listed as endangered in California, Michigan, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, and Wisconsin. These are states where they are known or thought to live. They are federally listed as threatened, but have been delisted in Minnesota due to population recovery after they were fully eliminated from Michigan and Wisconsin in the mid 60s. But because a small group survived in northern Minnesota, they were able to recover after they became federally protected. Per the Minnesota DNR, Alaska is the only U.S. state with a higher population of gray wolves than Minnesota, and Minnesota's gray wolf range has expanded from a 12,000 square mile area in the 1950s to over 27,000 square miles. In 2013, their population estimate was more than 2,000 wolves in Minnesota, which is why they were able to be delisted, at least in Minnesota. Gray wolves, or rather a subspecies of them, the Eurasian wolf, Canis lupus lupus, are also present across nearly all of mainland Europe, extending into Asia as well, though, like in the US, their populations and range are not what they used to be. Wolves live in all sorts of different environments, from wetlands to deserts to rocky peaks. There's hardly really an environment that a wolf won't try to live in. The driving factor of their presence is more dependent on prey availability, like livestock, as well as human presence, including just the things that humans leave behind, so homes and roads, as well as the snow conditions, which I find kind of interesting. It was kind of a long way to answer your question, but wolves are pretty much anywhere humans allow them to be within North America and Eurasia.
Are there other ways to keep wolves away from livestock besides shooting them? Is it even feasible to think about containing wolves some other way?
So, this question refers to a big issue facing wolves today, and that is that they're being killed by ranchers and other farmers and state agencies to keep them away from livestock. This is a big issue for ranchers, given that their animals are their livelihood. There are, however, many other ways to keep wolves away from livestock other than lethal methods like shooting them or trapping. These methods might include the use of a livestock guardian dog, a herder, or also putting the animals away at night and using fladry. Fladry are essentially flags or strips of material mounted at the top of a fence in such a way that they kind of blow in the wind, and the constant and sort of unpredictable movement can deter predators, but over time the effect can be diminished because they get sort of used to it. Those herders are people that you hire on to watch over and manage the herd of animals, though it can be expensive because you have to pay them, and especially because larger herds will require more people, and they have to be pretty much working 24/7 for a season. Livestock guardian dogs are also very effective at deterring and alerting for predators. They do occasionally engage physically with them if need be, but ideally they're more of an alert and deterrent system because we want to keep them safe. So there's a lot of breeds that do livestock guardian work, which include like the Great Pyrenees, Anatolian Shepherd, Tibetan Mastiff, and many more. They have very strong instincts to protect livestock against unfamiliar animals and people. While they don't require a salary, these dogs still do need food and are often expensive to acquire and train. So, overall, it's less about keeping the wolves contained, which would be a lot harder, and it's more about keeping them away from the livestock, kind of managing what we can.
Hi, Jolie. Here's my question. How many wolves get killed from eating livestock? Would it maybe be more ethical to just give them a cow or two?
Hello. So there's two questions here. Yeah, so how many wolves are killed because they eat livestock, and would it make more sense to just give them a cow or two? So, first, we should know that wolves only account for about 0.16% of unwanted sheep loss in Minnesota and 1.62 of cattle losses in Minnesota. As far as how many wolves are killed, it's really hard to say. It's not something that kind of the data gets congregated, but in some states, killing wolves is only legal if they're actively attacking your livestock. And then in other states, hunting is regulated but allowed. In the past few years, 200 to 350 wolves are killed each year by a government organization called Wildlife Services, which was formerly known as Animal Damage Control. Kind of an interesting name to me. They're not popular amongst wildlife advocates given the hundreds of thousands of native animals that they also kill each year, including those wolves. There is also a good amount of wolves that are hunted each year by individuals, not by government organizations. For the second end of the question, which maybe feels a little bit silly to some of our listeners, but I do understand where you're coming from. Ethical is a really interesting way to phrase it. For me, it isn't ethical. Realistically, wolves are only predating on livestock because they are either easier than wild prey or because there is a lack of wild prey. Feeding a cow or two to them would likely only encourage wolves to look for humans as a food source, which would make them more likely to approach humans and potentially be killed because of that. It's most ethical to deter wolves non lethally and let them eat their natural diet. We would be endangering them by giving them supplemental food.
Hey, I was wondering what you think or know about like wolf dogs. I've seen them online recently and they look like the ones from Game of Thrones. I was just wondering if they make good pets.
This is a very interesting and kind of complicated question. First, some establishing information. Contrary to popular belief, wolves didn't give us our modern day dogs. Rather, our dogs are more like a sister species to wolves, and the wolf population that gave rise to our furry friends is extinct. For this reason, it isn't likely that we will be able to re domesticate wolves again. It would be sort of like trying to domesticate a coyote or something similar. It wouldn't be the same. The animals in Game of Thrones were actually a breed called a Tamascan dog, which is a northern breed specifically bred to look like wolves, but they don't have any actual wolf ancestry. Wolf dogs, on the other hand, are hybrids between domestic dogs and wolves. It's unclear whether it is legal to breed a wolf to a dog directly, and most wolf dogs are a result of continued breeding of dogs with wolf content, some of which can be virtually indistinguishable or fully indistinguishable from a wolf because they have such high content that they are essentially just wolves. And that happens rather than introducing a pure wolf parent given that natural hybridization events are quite uncommon. Like we talked about before, dogs are not just changed wolves, they went down a different path on the evolutionary tree. And so, while these animals may be able to breed and create fertile offspring, that doesn't mean that they should. The instincts and traits of a domestic dog have been selectively bred for thousands of years to work with humans. And when they're crossed with wolves, animals are born that have two different, I guess, callings. It's unethical because it means that those animals can never truly have their needs met because every single one of them will be different and have different needs in different parts of their lives, and it will be just impossible to serve them. They're also more likely to be destructive and fearful and aggressive and wary of strangers, which makes them not good pets. Just go for a dog. They're undeniably part wolf, and that wolf part will always be wild animal. There are a lot of wolf dogs that already exist in rescues, and they do need homes. A properly prepared person or household can take this challenge on, but it's a very large commitment financially and in every other way imaginable, and it should not be taken lightly. I think that was the final question of the episode. I hope you learned a little or a lot. I try to provide you with as much information as I can in the time we have, but always feel free to check out the more detailed episode notes and sources on our social media sites at Wild Calls on all platforms. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you next episode.